Alright, welcome back to a video of Davian's collection of VHS, DVDs, games, and more. Today we're going to be starting off part 2 of my August 2022 DVD collection. The reason why I'm splitting it into parts is because it has big memory in it. And this phone here is running out of memory here at the Motorola Moto E6 on Davian's phone collection. 70 DVDs in my collection. We're going to start out with this DVD. It's going to be freaking epic. Now let's get on to the video. On the epic video, we're going to start out with this DVD here. Starting with is Thomas and Friends and Thomas the Snowy Surprise. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Thomas and Friends and Track Stars. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. It's filmed on a different aspect ratio. Next up is the Hit Entertainment DVD of Frosty Friends. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is the Hit Entertainment Awesome Adventures Volume 1 DVD. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Curious George, the complete 7th season. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever now. Next up is Angry Birds Toon Season 2 Volume 1. Works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever, even though it is cracked. Had some deep delamination as well. I'll have to retest it out. If it does not work or have issues, I'm going to be destroying it. Next up is the Spongebob movie, Sponge Out of Water. It works, but has trailer issues. Next up, I have two Blue's Clues Get Clued in the School packs. They both work perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. This one here, I had to use the green case because Curious George goes green. I destroyed it because it doesn't work. Next up is SpongeBob Squarepants and the Adventures of SpongeBob Squarepants. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Curious George 3, Back to the Jungle. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever, even though it's cracked a little bit. Next up is Curious George Fun with Friends. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Add Outdoor Adventures, but it doesn't work, so I destroyed it. Next up is Curious George Garden Discoveries. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Angry Birds Toon Season 2 Volume 2. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Sonic Boom. Here Comes the Boom. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Sonic Boom Go Team Sonic. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is gotta be one of my most collectible DVDs ever, Good Burger. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever, and the good thing about it is that I got it in New Year's Day 2019. Next up is the SpongeBob SquarePants first and second seasons box set. It is now 1 year old because got it last year. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is Curious George Be My Valentine. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is this 3 Pokemon movie collection. The first movie, the movie 2000, and 3 the movie. This disc works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. That first movie includes Mewtwo. Still play Pokemon Go though. And today I got a shiny Bronzor. Next up is the Blue's Clues Volume 2 Big Hits. Includes Shapes and Colors, if you will. Blue Takes You to School, Classic Clues, Blue's Biggest Stories, and Alphabet Power. All discs work perfectly fine, even though Blue Takes You to School is very loud on the DVD player. Next up is my most recently acquired DVD, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the movie. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. Next up is the Curious George 30 Story 6 Hours of Fun. Works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever. I destroyed my other one because disc 1 I had one in better condition than that one, and disc 2 fell into a halt. Now let's move on to 2020's DVDs, which is this decade. Starting with is Sonic Underground 3-disc set Volume 1. All work, but disc 3 has trailer issues. Next up is the 2 Curious George DVD collection. Got Fun with Animals, and Great Outdoors. They both work perfectly fine and no issues whatsoever. And last but not least is Blue's Clues and You and Blue's Sing-Along Spectacular. It works perfectly fine with no issues whatsoever, is in mint condition. Now that's going to do me with my August 2022 DVD collection in 2 parts. I have 70 DVDs and they all work, but some of them have issues. This is Davian's collection of VHS DVDs, games, and more. Thank you for watching. I hope you like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you again in my next video.